Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled To Date or Not to Date When You're a Radical Feminist. And guys, this whole article is about a woman, a self-proclaimed feminist, and that's what I'm going to say that word from now on, because if I use the other F word, this video may get flagged or taken down. And this is a self-proclaimed feminist. I've done videos before, guys, written by women that are similar to this, where they were self-proclaimed feminists, and they're basically complaining because they have a hard time dating, or guys don't want to date them, and basically putting the blame on guys for their lack of success in the dating world, right? But in this particular case, in this article, this takes it up a whole new level when you have a woman labeling herself a radical feminist. So things weren't bad enough before, it's even worse here. And as I go through this article, guys, in terms of her venting and ranting and raving and assigning blame on everybody else for her lack of not only dates, but also friends, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about here. And I got to tell you that I like to do these videos every so often because it always puts a big smile on my face to poke fun at gals like this, because believe me, they have it coming. And this is a perfect example, guys. You're going to see why I tell you guys all the time, for you guys that date, when you do a first date, always plan to meet up for just one drink only. That's it. Because the last thing you ever want is to somehow, if your screening process wasn't too good initially and you end up on a date with someone like this, the last thing you want to do is actually sit down at a table and have it arranged that you're going to sit down and have a meal with someone like this. Because aside from the fact that you are going to spend, obviously, a bunch of money that you're going to regret spending on this person or with this person, you're going to waste a chunk of your valuable time with this person listening to all their BS. And I've had the misfortune of knowing women like this throughout my life, particularly in the last few years. And believe me, it is, I would rather puncture my eardrums with a butter knife than have to sit there and listen to them rant on like this woman here. So guys, I'm going to go through this here. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. So, starts off, the more settled and comfortable I've become in my feminist choice, the more frustrating I've found the dating scene. You think? The more settled and comfortable I've become in my I said that part already. So in the midst of it all, I made the conscious decision to opt out of dating for a while, to avoid awkward conversations, debates, and unsolicited advice from people who are convinced men don't date women like me. After a while, it gets tiring trying to explain my position to people who choose to disrespect it. So she's mentioning here right from the get-go, guys. This kind of sets the stage for everything. She's talking about the dates and having awkward conversations and debates. Who do you think is really making the conversations awkward? Do you think it's the guy that had the misfortune of having a bad screening process and he ended up on a date with her? Do you think he's making it awkward, or her? Her. Who do you think is starting and continuing debates on various subjects on the dates? Him or her? Last time I checked, when you actually go out with someone, it's meant to be a fun, pleasant experience. It's not meant to go into political debates and things like that. But when it comes to individuals like this, anybody that would label themselves as a radical, there's no sense of relaxation. It's always a very intense environment with them, because that's what they live for. Okay? Typically, these type of people are very type A personality, very intense, very bossy, won't shut the hell up ever, and they wonder why, guess what, nobody wants to date them, let alone be around them, right? So, again, she's putting the blame on everybody else but her. A little self-examination would be a good idea, lady. It's not that I mind people criticizing feminism. Yes, she does. Because they're right to consider it a historical baggage. But having to constantly justify my point of view gets exhausting. So I just don't. Especially since the majority of guys I've come across are convinced that I am using this as an excuse to be difficult and unnecessarily. So I have yet to know any women that are feminists that aren't difficult, that aren't making mountains out of molehills, that aren't always looking to debate and argue and all that. I haven't known one, guys, okay? Maybe you have, but I sure as hell haven't. I'm sure not all men, but I would be lying if I said I've met a stream of men in the past few years who really understand the whole feminist thing. There are very few who really get it and don't just pretend to, in the hopes that it will get them laid or give the impression of being woke. The woke ones are especially quick to dismiss the feminist agenda because to them, the race thing, being black and all, trumps any gender issues. So now we're on to the other thing here. You know, guys I know a lot of people, and friends, acquaintances, clients, friends of friends, those type of things. And I've known some guys that would kind of label themselves as feminists, okay, or woke. And not to get political, but I live in Massachusetts, and generally speaking, a big part of the people here are fairly liberal and have that mindset, okay. But you'd also have plenty of guys that are much more either in the middle or on the right. But you got Massachusetts known as a liberal state, so I know a number of guys that definitely would consider themselves to be feminist. But the thing they all have in common is either one, they're typically, without a shadow of a doubt, guys that are weaker. Their women tend to boss them around. They're definitely the blue pill types. Good guys, don't get me wrong. I mean, I want to slap them sometimes for some of their misguided and delusional views on things, but they're decent guys. And they buy into all this bullshit. But they're guys that your typical good-looking woman, a feminine woman that a lot of guys would want, wouldn't give them the time of day because of a lot of this mindset they have. Or they're just simply terrible with women, okay? And so these type of guys that she describes here, you know, the irony is a lot of women don't want them anyway, okay? I've known women that are feminists that actually want guys that are more masculine, but no masculine guy wants to be with a woman that is masculine as well. It's like being on a date with another dude if you're a guy, you know what I mean? And a straight man doesn't want to be on a date with another guy. But they don't get that. She continues, all I'm saying is that it's hard enough being a woman without identifying with the feminist or womanist movements. Doing so unleashes a whole other series of complications. I get that apparently men can be feminists, but for me, unless you lived the tiring experience of being the mythical, difficult woman, you can't begin to understand what women go through. For me, the best a man can do is empathize, fight for women's rights and issues, and be the allies of the movement, for lack of a better word. The reality is that the men who identify with the feminist movement get celebrated as the cream of the crop. Meanwhile, the women get butchered for it. Being a feminist as a man is a nice to have. For me, it's a necessity. Being a feminist man most likely doesn't drastically affect your dating life as much as it does for women in the same position. Well, because usually guys that would call themselves mistakenly in a very disillusioned way feminist, they're not exactly the intense type A personality. I mean, there are some, but the ones I know are much more quiet and soft and reserved. They're not outspoken. They're not that way at all. It's the women that identify as that are the loud, outspoken types, okay? And also the whole thing about being male, guys that are male feminists being celebrated, yeah, maybe in the media, but behind closed doors, not so much. Your average guy is not going to be like, yeah, Bob, yeah, John, for that type of viewpoint. Actuality, they're kind of laughing at him. Even here in liberal Massachusetts. Feminist men don't get accused of being man haters, but we do. Nobody accuses them of trying to be women just by virtue of standing up for women's rights, but feminist women are called out all the time for trying to be a man. Well, the thing is, I have yet to know without a shadow of a doubt, feminist woman that doesn't have a whole lot of very masculine traits. Okay, not just in terms of her personality, but also her tone of voice, her body language, everything. Very masculine. So that's why they get labeled that way, because they are embracing their masculine side. Okay? And if they don't have a problem with that, okay, that's their business. But guess what? When they complain they can't attract the type of men they want, understand by acting masculine, you're not going to attract a masculine guy. The type of guys that you will attract are typically guys that are in touch with their feminine side. The more beta male type, so to speak. The blue pill guys, the beta male guys, the feminine guys. Because often those guys had a very domineering mother or grandmother or auntie or female sisters or cousins, and their dads weren't, the dads didn't wear the pants in the family. So that's what they're attracted to, because that's how they were raised, and that's just normal to them. And a lot of those guys actually want feminine women, but the feminine women are turned off by those guys because the feminine women don't want to be dating or in a relationship with a feminine guy, because that'd be like having two women on a date. See what I'm talking about? This is what some men call it when you refuse to be silenced and rendered invisible. So I imagine a feminist man's dating experience is quite different to mine, but I could be wrong. Dating for me feels like a challenge I haven't yet found my way around, and I'll be the first to admit that I am an acquired taste, and that's okay. In other words, she knows she's a pain in the ass. I generally don't feel inclined to be seen as nice or likable. Listen to this. So I have very few friends. Gee, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought that this lady would have a hard time making or maintaining friends given her personality here. What a shocker. I am set in my feminist ways, so I can't be changed or tamed. I'm done arguing and explain to men who have no desire to hear nor understand where I come from. So I looked at her picture, and looking at the picture, I would say she's somewhere between her very late 20s and early 30s. And you mean to tell me that at that age, which isn't that old, she's already well set in her ways for life? See what I'm talking about? Who wants to be hanging around somebody that's that extreme, that unbending, uncompromising? It's just not a good time. When people have the free time to actually hang out with friends or be with someone they're involved with or date, whatever, they want to kick back and relax and have a good time. Not get into debates about politics or the great injustices of the world. But people like this, radicals in any way, they can't do that. They're incapable of doing it. She says, I am blunt, a little rough around the edges, with a very strong, occasionally petty personality, when the occasion requires it. I am very loud, a tad dramatic when a moment calls for diva tactics, and comfortable with my sexuality. So a bunch of those sound like, wait for it, masculine traits. I don't care for gender roles, and I'm not afraid to call you out when you're being a prick, because I have no patience for your ego. I am very ambitious and don't care about being liked, so I wouldn't do things to impress someone. I've been single long enough to be comfortable with my own company, so I'm not too worried about being seen as undateable. I have the makings of a perfect cat lady. She said it, not me. I didn't say it. You know, I'm a lifelong cat lover. So if there's a silver lining to all this, there'll be a lot of cats that are going to have I wouldn't say good homes, but there's going to be cats that are going to have homes and be fed and taken care of going forward. So I'm happy for that. And since cats generally spend, I don't know, between 2/3 to 70% of their life sleeping, whenever she's going off about her thing, cats can just curl up in a ball and go to sleep. I'm not even done this article, guys. I am 2/3 through the article, and already you can see who on earth would want to hang out with someone like this. There's no enjoyment, pleasure. I can't imagine what her family's like. She continues, although like everyone else, I have a desire for companionship, it needs to make sense in the context of the life that I live. I refuse to settle just because I'm afraid of being lonely. The reality is, people get lonely even in relationships, so my sacrifice will be worth nothing. I care very little for relationships that force me into a position in which I'm expected to compromise myself. In other words, it is my way or the highway. End of story. Again, back to the masculine traits. I've lost count of the number of times men ask me, who hurt you? When I introduce myself as a feminist. I would be rich if I received a rand every time some guy accused me of being an angry, BLACK woman with daddy issues. I gotta spell that out just in case, given today's world, YouTube finds some issue with me saying that. It's ridiculous. I gotta speak in code or spell words out, but that's how things are nowadays, guys. I don't care if some guy thinks I'm uptight because I don't think sexist or homophobic jokes are funny. It's not my hope to ever be one of the guys at the expense of the integrity of all women. I've reached that dangerous level of feminist where even female acquaintances introduce me as their male friends as Rebon the feminist, as a precaution, so they'll tread carefully in my presence. Translation, the few friends that she has knows that she's so uptight and such a giant pain in the ass that they gotta literally warn people they know about her, otherwise it could get very uncomfortable real quick. Again, is it any wonder she has very few friends, let alone anybody that she's dating or in a relationship with? It hasn't occurred to me to worry that some men categorize me as a man-hating you-know-what. Apparently, my short hair gives me away. Guys, these just keep coming and coming, these stereotypes. I think it was the actor Vince Vaughn in the movie Four Christmases who said, "Haircuts don't lie." And it is dead on. In fact, I am offended that some men think calling me a you-know-what is offensive. The reality is that if you're the kind of man who thinks that way, you're automatically not my type. Well, honey, I don't think any guy is your type, and believe me, you're not any guy's type either. If you suddenly became a mute and couldn't speak anymore, maybe you then would get a guy. But then you would learn sign language, and the sign language guys would know what you're saying, and that would turn them off. Borrowing the words of a foreign male acquaintance, the men in this country are shamelessly aggressive. He came to this conclusion a few days after landing in the country, when he observed a pack of men aggressively trying to pick up a group of women sitting together, only to then pursue another group of women sitting next to the group who rejected them. So I've concluded that it is safer and healthier for me to continue to pursue all the endless possibilities that feminism has opened for me. Maybe along the way, this dating thing will sort itself out. So in other words, my rotten personality has turned off pretty much everybody that I encounter, both on the dating scene as well as even simply making friends. So I have nothing else in this world, so I'm going to 100% pursue all the wonderful and joyous things that feminism has to offer. That's what she's going to do. That will be her purpose in life. Everybody's got to have a purpose. This is her purpose in life. And to write on annoying articles such as this. I don't have it in me to betray a feminist way of life that has liberated me by giving me the courage and power to take back what I deserve instead of waiting to be given permission. The choices I make in my dating life must align with my feminist choice, or else I will simply be submitting to misery. Submitting to misery. Does this woman, through her writings here, does she sound like a very happy person to you? Does she sound like someone that wakes up every day feeling good and brings joy and positivity to everybody she encounters? No. I think everybody that knows her, they see her coming and they take off and they run like their ass is on fire. But guys, this is the creation of multiple decades of the you-know-what movement. It is an extreme side, but it's out there. And so, like I said, guys, I don't want you guys, unfortunately, getting stuck on some date with someone like this, for those of you that date. So this is why I always tell you, have a very good screening process before you actually go out on that date. If you guys do the dating apps and all that, and obviously you click with some woman, and if she's good looking, still, before you go on that first date, ask her if she's open to talking offline. Quick phone call or whatever, just to hear her voice, see what she's like. Okay? That way, you can then find out real quick some things about her. But even if that doesn't work, you do one drink. You get to that restaurant or bar, wherever it is that you had that drink, and you'll find out pretty much the length of time it takes to have your beer, or your glass of wine, or your margarita, or if you don't drink, your coffee or tea, to see if a woman has some of these traits. Okay, because the last thing you want to do is be sitting there and having a full-on meal, and then this dark characteristic, this dark personality comes out. That's the last thing you need, okay? All you need is to have it one time, and you'll never forget it and won't make the mistake again. So, but anyhow, guys, just I thought it'd be a fun video to do. I've yet to see one on a radical feminist. So, alright guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.